Welcome back, boxing fans. So, we got a lot to talk about this weekend, all related to the 140-pound weight division. Um, Big fight card this weekend, DAZN. We'll talk about that and much more. One of the big questions, and I've seen this all over Twitter and social media, is who is going to step up and fight Subriel Matias, right? And we've talked about this before. Obviously, since that first conversation, some things have changed a little bit. Obviously, guys have fights scheduled. Teofimo Lopez is going to be fighting the dude from Canada. Devin Haney is fighting Ryan Garcia. And Rolly Romero just lost to Isaac Cruz. So those situations are a little more up in the air, a little more tentative. And of course, Subriel Matias also has a fight scheduled. So when we talk about who's going to step up and what potential fights we're going to see at 140 pounds and which of these guys are going to step in the ring and try to unify with Matias, or just step up and try to prove that they are the bad boy on the block, we understand people have things going on. So this isn't hating or pointing fingers at anyone. It's just talking about a division that's hot, right? Not just 140 itself, but also 135 pounds, which is kind of a feeding division or a feeder division to 140 pounds. Obviously, since Lopez, Isaac Cruz, Rolly Romero, Devin Haney, and there was one other person, all recently have come from the 135-pound division. That's like five guys in the top, three of whom are currently world champions, all who jumped above the long list of 140-pound fighters. And 140 was a hot division before these fighters jumped up. But back in the day when we were talking about some of these great matchups and some of these guys that were at that division, what's up, Darkness? We were talking about, how much better this division will be when these other big name opponents jump up and then bring the money with them. And obviously that's what a Lopez, now a Cruz, and a Devin Haney, and potentially a Tank Davis do. They bring a lot more eyes to the 140-pound division and a lot more money. Obviously, when you had Prograis, Ramirez, Taylor fighting in the World Boxing Super Series with guys like Gary Russell Jr.'s brother, and a whole slew of other top fighters, Zepeda and many others. It was a great division, deep, with a lot of talent. But as I said back then, there was no elite guy in the division. We thought that elite fighter was Taylor, but then obviously Taylor lost a controversial fight, actually won, but it was controversial, against Jack Hetrell, who he's going to be rematching sometime soon. I heard that fight's been delayed again. This is just the karma with regards to that fight. It just fucking can't happen at a regular pace. Obviously, Ramirez is also coming back on a Golden Boy card sometime soon, but not really against an interesting opponent. Basically, the whole card is just a stay busy type of card. So none of the opponents that any of the Golden Boy fighters are fighting are really anyone that's going to excite boxing fans. But it is what it is, right? When guys have been inactive, the smart thing to do is bring them back with a get busy fight before you throw them back in with the Sharks. Unfortunately, we look at some examples of people who didn't do that. The PBC. The PBC had fighters that were very inactive, threw them in with the best of the best. And in 90% of those situations, the PBC fighters ended up getting their ass beat, right? Why? Inactivity, rust, just not being at the top of their game. And people said that. People said you can't run a program like this where fighters are fighting once a year and maybe even fewer times. Because the reality of the situation is you're not building up their brand. You're not giving boxing fans the fights they want to see, the matchups. And when you do make those fights, you're biting off more than you can chew, right? And that's basically what happened to Errol Spence, Stephen Fulton, and many others, obviously Wilder and whatnot. But let's get to it. Obviously, this division is good. A lot going on in this weight class. The junior welterweight division dominance. When you look about currently what's going on at the 147-pound division, the far more exciting division is 140 pounds. So much so that people even contemplated Devin Haney moving straight up to 140 because obviously the potential to become a three-weight world champion is there because the level of opposition he would potentially have to fight for one of those vacant titles isn't really the highest level of fighter that you would expect, at least not what we expected from the past when you had obviously guys like Bud Crawford and Errol Spence, Keith Thurman and Sean Porter and Danny Garcia who were sort of running the roost. Now you have a bunch of second-tier fighters, an untested potential superstar, and obviously Devin Haney wasn't going in that direction. They were talking about him facing Mario Barros, which isn't a bad opponent, but it obviously was a great potential fight to become a three-weight world champion. But happily, they're staying at the 140-pound division. It looks great. Now the situation is, can they make the fights, right? And that's all we asked. Even going back to my video more than a year ago when I was talking about how deep this division was and how literally you could just reach into a hat, pull two names out, and you were potentially going to get great fights. The division is still deep, but obviously we're kind of in a transition period. A lot of the older guys have kind of moved on, even though I'm surprised that Ramirez and Taylor are still at 140. You would have figured now is the time for them to move to 147 now that Crawford and Spence are moving on. But we'll see. Potentially that is what's going to happen, especially if they're struggling to make weight. So let's see how that unfolds. So here is a pound for pound list that I saw on X, or Twitter as it used to be known, from Boxing Enthusiast. Anyone on X, they see he posts quite a bit. And well, he can tend to be a little biased. Generally, his takes aren't too bad. But when you look at this pound for pound list, this is the kind of list that obviously is going to get under some people's skin. Inouye #1 over Bud Crawford. I mean, based on Bud Crawford's fantastic performance last year against Errol Spence, it's hard not to have him #1, even though obviously Inouye's performance against Stephen Fulton and then his victory afterwards to become undisputed, he was more active. He's even got his next fight scheduled against Luis Neri to defend his titles. So in the time Bud Crawford fought once, Inouye is now scheduled to fight his third potential fight. Bud Crawford, we still don't know what's going on with him next. And it'll be interesting to see exactly what does work out. There's been talk about him fighting #1 mandatory for the vacant WBO title in Josh Kelly, but that's not a fight that really anybody's intrigued by. The possibility of him fighting Lubin, that's a better fight, right? At least then he'd be fighting a legitimate 154-pound fighter. The fight I'd like to see would be him and Tim Tszyu. I still think that fight is still a great fight, just because Tim Tszyu is coming off of a loss based on unfortunate circumstances doesn't take away from that fight and the name recognition that it has. And I think for both of them to get the payday that they would both want, that's probably the best fight available. I don't think a Lubin Bud Crawford fight is pay-per-view, and I don't think it generates that much money. But the rep is in the house. It seems a lot of fighters are inactive. Usyk has only fought once a year. Again, people, right, with their narratives. I'm just pointing out facts, but you want to make it into, of course, a racial situation, because that's what you're here to do, right? Make it race. I didn't say other people weren't inactive. I just used a few examples talking about how inactivity is not a great thing for your career, because you're not going to be as sharp. You're not going to be at your best. And literally, I just talked about Inouye and Crawford, neither PBC fighter, who literally are in the same situation. But okay, Tank on a pound for pound list is ridiculous. I think Tank is totally a pound for pound fighter. But in saying that, I mean, you got to fight the kind of fights that justify you being on a pound for pound list, right? And that's true for everyone. But as far as Tank being on the list, I don't have a problem with it. Also, let's just go back. So then Usyk, obviously, who has a fight scheduled, and that fight should have happened a long time ago. only because of injuries and situations. It's been delayed. Dmitry Bivol obviously has a fight with number 7 Arthur Beterbiev scheduled for Undisputed. Yes, Bivol wasn't very active after his Canelo fight. Obviously, what he was trying to do was trying to cash out and get big money fights. And in the meantime, he sat around waiting for those opportunities to arise. Whereas Beterbiev and ESPN, who usually keep their fighters a lot more busy, kept him busy. Tank Davis, number 5, I definitely think it's too high, even though he's definitely one of the most exciting fighters and definitely one of the most crowd friendly fighters. So you can understand why people would like to put him on a pound for pound top 10 list. But I don't know how you'd put him above Devin Haney, right? I mean, I like Tank Davis more. And if I was a promoter and I could sign one fighter, I'd sign Tank Davis. But Devin Haney's done more. He's done what he should do, and he should be rewarded because of that, obviously. I'm just saying it's not only PBC. And I wasn't saying it was only PBC. That's you. Bud Crawford is not part of the PBC. All should fight 4 times a year minimum. Well, I definitely think 2 or 3 times a year. The problem is these guys want so much money, it's hard for promoters to pay them the amount of money they want to get in the ring. How is Tank and Shakur above Tio? Yeah, I just noticed. No, Haney. What the hell? Well, Shakur, 3-weight world champion, hasn't been beaten. Tio, 2-weight unified champion with Hall of Fame victories on his resume, something that Shakur doesn't have. So you can measure it. They should be in a similar situation. Obviously, I feel lower on the schedule or lower on the rankings, but nonetheless, both great fighters, both 2 of the best young fighters in boxing today. The problem is their inconsistent performances have kind of hurt their marketability, right? And we saw that in their most recent fights, which is probably why in their next fights, they're taking on low-level opponents. Because apparently it's being reported that Shakur Stevenson is going to be fighting Javier, the guy that Frank Martin had just fought. And obviously Tio Former Lopez is fighting that Canadian guy. So both not great opponents. Both stay busy opponents, both guys to make sure they're sharp, active, so that in their next fight, which we would hope is going to be against obviously far better competition, they're going to perform better and not so inconsistent. But we'll see if that's what happens. Let's keep moving. So obviously today we're not only talking about Subriel Matias, but we're talking about the 140-pound division. And the question, obviously, because Cruz just became a world champion once again, is which of these champions is literally going to step up and take on Matias? We saw both Haney and Lopez call him out, but that both of them are taking on not lesser opponents, but I mean, Tio took on 2 opponents, both not big name opponents, both not high marketable opponents, whereas Haney is taking on a marketable opponent, but not really a guy who's accomplished anything. So you can give Haney a bit of a pass because at least his fight generates money, whereas Lopez's 2 fights, if anything, they just create negativity towards his career, because some people just love to harp and hate. I saw one YouTube channel hating on Lopez's next opponent. I'm curious if they're going to be hating on Shakur's next opponent. They, of course, are more than happy that Tank Davis is taking on Frank Martin. And don't get me wrong, Frank Martin is a good opponent, but he's not a pay-per-view opponent. He's 28 years old. He's never fought a top 10, 135-pound fighter. He's never been a world champion. He doesn't have a big fan base. So while it's a great fight, entertaining, how much interest is it going to generate for casual sports fans, right? And I don't think too much. Tank beats Frank Martin, and like Azapeta next, then I could see him at number 5. He beats Frank Martin, and then obviously what we'd love to see him do is go to Saudi Arabia and fight Devin Haney. And if you beat Devin Haney, then you're potentially pushing top 3, depending on what happens with Crawford, Inouye, and Usyk in their next fights. But, if you want big recognition. You got to make big moves. I saw some people wanting to talk about, well, people want Tank Davis to fight all these great fighters, yet, they're okay with William Zepeda or Brandon Lee or I don't know, guys like that for not fighting great opponents. But you're talking about a guy people list on a pound for pound list. People list as the face of American boxing. Every fight that he has is pay per view. So, of course, the expectations for him, like Canelo, are going to be higher than some fighters who've never even fought for a world title yet. Like literally. But some people are so biased, right? They're happy to praise dudes who haven't even done as much uh, as what's his face, Zepeda. Zepeda's beat some legitimate opponents and obviously put himself right in position. It's unfortunate. I'm hearing that not he specifically, but his team who were capping for a Shakur fight, and potentially that could be Shakur's next fight. But apparently they said, not now, next, which means that probably sometime around October or November, maybe the possibility of Shakur versus Zepeda is possible. But I also heard Shakur's team asked about a Murataya fight, and then Murataya's team, Robert Garcia, said, yes, we're in, no problem. Send us the paperwork. We're for it. And then they went in a different direction and signed the guy coming off of a loss. So there's always this kind of he said, she said kind of garbage that goes on. That's why I don't understand when people overreact. I mean, I understand why some people do it because they're just pushing a racial narrative. But for most of us, the truth is, you got to wait to see how things unfold. None of us are in the negotiations. None of us really know what truly is going on. Uh, where are we? The champs at 140 right now are Tio, Haney, Matias, and Pitbull. Yes, Pitbull versus Matias. Salute. Machado, what's up? For me, the fight that makes the most sense would be Pitbull Cruz versus Sabrio Matias. Mexico versus Puerto Rico. We know that both fan bases from both countries are huge boxing fans, and that's the kind of fight that they get around. They support. I mean, you throw that fight in New York City, and it's going to get a ton of attention from the 140-pound division. And that's a unification fight. Obviously, they're going to be able to generate good money. You could probably put it on pay-per-view depending on what other fights you had on the card, because we know now, depending on who promotes this, the PBC or DAZN, if it's the PBC, they try to making everything pay-per-view. So even a fight of that magnitude, they would probably try to make pay-per-view. I think that stylistically would be a unbelievable fight. Great fight. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that shit? Man, two attacking, come forward fighters, both with power. Obviously, I think Cruz has got the better chin and the tougher fighter, but Matias is the harder puncher, the longer fighter, uses his jab better. I think he's a better body puncher, but we saw Cruz against Romero. He used his body work really well. That's a great matchup, and I would love to see it. And it makes the most sense, as Haney versus Lopez would probably make more sense for those two champions, right? Because that's a huge mega fight, huge pay-per-view. Both Haney and Tio could make $10 million for a fight of that magnitude, maybe even more. Whereas if they were fighting Cruz or Sabrio Matias, it's going to be hard to generate as much excitement or buzz. Hitchens versus Lemos. Are you excited? We're going to be talking about that in a bit. Did you like Moan's performance? I only saw the last round or two, and I thought he looks good for a young kid. He had a good opponent that wouldn't give up, so gave him rounds, which is what a young kid needs. For his age, he looks really professional, really smooth. They were comparing him to Tank, but I don't think he's got Tank Davis power, even though he has his physicality. Problem with him, like Tank, is that they'll be better off to really be set in one weight division and just try to dominate that division for 10 years. right? And build their legacy from just dominating and unifying. But since we know he's a PBC fighter and specifically a Floyd Mayweather fighter, we know that fighting for titles and unification and undisputed is not something Floyd and those guys are going to push him for. So don't be surprised if his career ends up being just as disappointing as Tank Davis, even though he looks like he's got all the talent in the world. I think Antoine Russell would be a great style for Matias and Pitbull, but he never fights. Well, the problem with him is he was offered a fight for the WBA world title, and he walked away from it because he said, that guy's not at my level. Well, what do you mean? That guy's a world champion. You're not. You're inactive. You're not fighting anybody. You're just like your brother, literally. All three of those brothers, the problem with them is they think they're better than they are, right? And because of that, they've ruined their careers. Gary ruined his fucking career. Now he's fucking an afterthought. Not going to be a Hall of Famer, right? And his two brothers, who you would think would have learned from his experience, are basically just retreading and doing the exact same thing he did. So I don't know. It's disappointing because he's an exciting fighter, a great power. Potentially, you could put him in a lot of really good fights on the PBC side, but those fights aren't even being made. So I don't know. I don't know. Given the styles, I think Cruz has the best chance of dethroning Matias. Cruz has that toughest chin at 140. Well, he's got the most, I think, easy style for Matias to beat because he comes right to Matias, which is exactly what Matias wants, right? Who's going to use his jab, boom, boom, hit the body, hit the head. He better have a tough chin. He better have a tough chin. But I think probably Devin Haney has the best style to beat Matias because he's not going to engage. He's going to control distance. He's going to fight when he's in position, and then he's going to make Matias chase after him. Matias doesn't really throw his hard punches until his feet are set, which means that you can turn him, you can move him, you can use your jab. He's got a good jab, solid jab, but I don't think he's going to win a battle of jabs versus Devin Haney. And I think that's Lopez and him would be potentially fight of the year, and it would really test us to see what kind of heart Lopez really has. But it would definitely probably be the most exciting of the three fights. But nonetheless, none of those fights are fights that would disappoint, right? You know, whether we're talking about an Isaac Cruz who showed a very aggressive come forward style, great chin, very good gas tank, or whether they're talking about a Devin Haney who is a pound for pound top fighter, probably the highest out of everyone we're talking about, a guy who is the best boxer out of any of them, which is obviously going to be difficult and complicated stylistically. He also has length, youth, and speed. And then you have Lopez, who, you know, probably the best marketable out of them as far as selling the fight, using his personality, talking a load of shit, shitting on Puerto Rico in the process of trying to sell the fight, but then not take the fight, right? Already Puerto Rico wants to see him get knocked out before the fight even got scheduled. So, you know, he's already worked wonders for promoting the fight. And then, of course, the underlying fighter that would be great would be Tank Davis. Most of us realize that Tank Davis probably will be fighting Isaac Cruz to become a three-weight world champion, another in-house PBC fight. I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying that's probably the most likely scenario for him, to fight the in-house opponent as opposed to fight the guys on the zone. It's not hate. It's just reality, truth. And then potentially once he becomes a three-weight world champion, maybe then we could potentially see him fight Devin Haney or Lopez. But I don't think Tank Davis is going to be moving towards Subriel Matias. If a fight like that was really going to be made, they probably would have kept Subriel Matias over on the PBC side and not allowed him to leave and cross the street, right? If they really had big plans for him and what they were hoping to do with him moving forward. But they probably felt because he doesn't speak English, that he's not as marketable as some other fighters, right? Puerto Rico, they're looking for a superstar. He potentially is the superstar. But is he Tito? Is he Cotto? We'll have to wait and see. But this is definitely the division where he can lay claim to that. If he beats any of these fighters, especially in dominant performances, then Puerto Rican people will totally put a crown on him, and he will become the new Puerto Rican superstar, right? So it's a matter of him getting the fights and then proving them. Uh, what else are we talking about? So this is the schedule of the next few fights that are scheduled. I don't know why this thing blocks my view. I got that slide window here, but it's not good because it blocks everything. Okay, that's better. So boxing matches from March. Obviously, March is done. We had the Tim Tszyu Funduro fight till June. And we have Haney Garcia pay-per-view. People have been critical of the undercard, saying it's pretty shit for a pay-per-view, but um, that's not unusual. A lot of the pay-per-views we've been getting for the last few years have had really shit undercards. Then, of course, we have Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia, May 4th, another pay-per-view. I'm not sure if I've seen the undercard for that fight yet. Let's just take a quick peek. Since we're talking about it, we might as well look at it and see what's listed. If Tank goes up to 140 for Pitbull, won't it look bad for him when he said Devin is big and doesn't sell? Yeah, but let's be honest. How are you going to compare Pitbull to fucking Devin Haney? Even though Pitbull went up to 140 to become a champion, he's the smaller fighter than Tank Davis. So it's not like he's got any size advantage against Tank. So if people use that argument, it doesn't really make sense, right? When he moved up and faced, or when he fought Barrios and Ryan Garcia and even Devin Haney, they're all much taller, much longer than him. They put on a lot of weight afterwards, whereas Isaac Cruz is way shorter, shorter arms. If he puts on too much weight, that guy is literally going to be he's going to be a round ball. What's up with Roy Dixon claiming everyone being crazy? I don't know. Is it him or is it? Remember, there's a bunch of trolls using your name, and who knows, right? I don't take anything people say too serious because there's some people out there that literally are trolling you and Hawker and basically just throwing out stupid fucking comments left, right, and center. So, Roy is an emotional kid, so he probably just reacts to all of it. And, it once happened to me. Somebody had my image and was going around saying all these kind of crazy things on YouTube, trying to make me look bad. Like, I was all into transgendered and this and that and doing all kinds of crazy shit, making crazy statements, but it wasn't me, right? And people should realize that when somebody comes out and starts fucking spewing things that are out of character, chances are it's probably just a troll, right? Unless somebody like Fannin literally lost their fucking mind, which also happens as well. But where is that? So I saw Haney Garcia tickets aren't selling. I'm surprised they didn't put this fight on the West Coast where both fighters' fan base is at. Well, I think that's what Ryan Garcia wanted, right? That was part of the kickback with regard to that. People being a little pissed off that that's the way things were shaping up. But once again, I don't fucking care. All that specific stuff, it's not me. It's up to their team to do. Outside of that, I mean, it's irrelevant to me. So far on BoxRec, they don't have any other fights on the Canelo Alvarez Jaime Munguia fight, only that one. As far as Devin Haney, where are you, Devin Haney? There you are. And Ryan Garcia, we can go over this. People have been really critical and upset about it, specifically Tank Davis fans, even though Tank Davis often puts out shitty pay-per-views with very weak cards. Oh, yeah, BoxRec is slow to fucking do anything. BoxRec also doesn't have the fight scheduled for Devin Haney, even though we know that it just came out recently. What other fights are we looking forward to? Anui versus Luis Neri, obviously May 6th. I'm excited about that. I'm just excited because Anui's fighting 3 times this year. He's doing really what boxing fighters should do, right? People are quick to criticize and hate on him, but he's doing more than your favorite fighter is doing. He's fighting 3 times a year, defending undisputed titles, taking on ex-world champions, and obviously in his last fight, current world champions. And I saw some guy on Twitter or X saying, well, pushing that whole narrative that he should move up and face Tank Davis. I also saw John, who just today saying that, how come people aren't asking Inui to fight Nakatani? Who was on my live when we were watching Nakatani win his bantamweight world title and Inui's brother was defending his title on that card? Anyone in the comment section, please leave it. Say I was there. We were literally talking about the prospects of Nakatani fighting Inui. Inui obviously is at 122. Nakatani just had his first fight at 118. We said the most likely scenario would be him to fight Inui's brother to unify titles at bantamweight. And then the brother rivalry type of situation, you want to redeem your brother, right? Then that whole story builds up even more for a potential Inui-Nakatani matchup, right? So literally, we're talking about these fights. And we've seen great Japanese fighters face great Japanese fighters. Tanaka, moving up to become a 4-weight world champion, fought Ioka, a 4-weight world champion, in a fight that was getting tons of attention on YouTube. Not by most of the Black American YouTubers and those guys who never talked about it before, during, or even after. But real boxing fans that are all about the sport, they were all over that fight. There was even bets going on about who was going to win. Recently we had Kenshiro fight the other Japanese champion to unify titles at 108 pounds. So people saying, oh, no one's asking Japanese fighters to fight each other. That's complete bullshit. What are you talking about? Like, literally, that's not true at all. Not at all. But like some guys, they're more focused on anything they see that they can use to push a racial narrative, talking about how it's unfair. There's a double standard. Okay, sure there is. I mean, in Japan, Japanese fighters are fighting each other fucking weekly. Just because you don't talk about them, because you don't know who they are, because you don't care about boxing outside of the US, doesn't mean it's not happening. Literally, these dudes are fighting each other every fucking week. Like, you can't make this shit up. I think if I even just scroll here, we look at fights that happened this week. You have Japanese fighters facing Japanese fighters. Let's see, did we? No, not this week, not there, not listed. Okay. But, some people are mental. Reports say Boots will be co-main for the Canelo fight. I did hear that, but who's he going to co-main against? Is it going to be against my Canadian brethren? Because then, people are going to fanboy Boots fighting that Canadian guy, but then criticize Lopez for fighting that Canadian guy. They're both good fighters, but neither are the kind of guy that you expect to give much resistance to elite world-class type of fighters. So was Funduro forced to give up that belt? I'm surprised the belt's given up so quick, right? Because literally he just won it on the weekend. And from what I heard, he's got a doctor's report saying he's not going to be able to fight until September, October, because he just had nose surgery. So if you put that in, according to WBO regulation, that means, the fight should be delayed, the possible fight between Bud Crawford and him. So I'm not sure what's going on, but the politics of boxing is fucking ridiculous. These sanctioning bodies, man, they fucking are the cancer to the sport. Inui is a phenomenal fighter. I just wish more was around him at 122 and 126. But what do you mean? He's come through tons of weight divisions. The problem is when he was at 115 pounds, when there was more, none of those fights, unfortunately, were made. Estrada, Inui, Ioka, and Kanjas, none of those fights were made, unfortunately. Rungvisai, Quadras. But at 118, he fought everyone. At 122, literally, he's fighting everyone. He's fighting Luis Neri, a two-weight world champion next. After that, there's conversation about him fighting AJ Akhmedov, the unified champion, Olympic silver medalist. And then after that, potentially fighting the Australian guy, his mandatory, who, is probably the least out of anybody he's fought in probably 5 years. Well, no, sorry. During COVID, he fought two low-level opponents to stay busy in Japan. But outside of those two fights, everyone he's been fighting are ex or current world champions. PBC is wasting Stanionis' career. Fuck, man. That should be the fight, right? On the undercard. Stanionis Boots for WBA, IBF world titles on the undercard of Canelo, Jaime Munguia. Tell me boxing fans wouldn't fucking be excited about that. I mean, we were super excited when Ortiz and Stanionis were set for the regular title. Now you slap on the real title, kind of like Funduro and Tim Tszyu just had. And now you're cooking with fucking gas, man. That fight's great. Stylistically, good fight. Stanionis has beaten quality opponents, literally been in with top 10 fighters. That's a great fight. The only negative is that Stanionis has been so inactive. It would be kind of tough to ask him to jump in to fight a guy like Boots without even getting a prelim fight. But that's kind of what the PBC does. So, it wouldn't be a surprise. Japanese fighters have been fighting each other, unlike these American hype shops. Well, that's what I'm saying, man. These dudes literally fight fucking all the time. But only an ignorant fucking dumbass would make it seem as if, nobody's talking about Nakatani and Inui fighting, that we're afraid to talk about that fight, that we're trying to protect them. No, literally, Nakatani was just a 115-pound fighter. He was literally 2 weight divisions below Inui. He just moved up to bantamweight. So it's a little premature to overreact to that potential fight, even though it's a fight people wanted. People actually gave Ioka fucking shit. I'm one of them. When Ioka literally dropped his WBO title to duck Nakatani. I mean, I've never seen a Japanese fighter literally duck another Japanese fighter in that circumstance, right? And people were critical of him because that was going to be a great fight. But Ioka chose to go in another direction. If Tszyu doesn't get cut, do you see him beating Funduro? Oh man, I see him stopping him. Tszyu's team have been getting criticized heavily. Did you see that Stitch Duran said? Well, Stitch Duran said what everyone said, right? That he couldn't stop the cut either. That kind of cut where it was is just a tough cut and it's going to bleed. That's why most people say his corner should have asked the ref to stop the fight, because my fighter can't see. You can't talk to the fighter because he's always going to say, yeah, let's do it. Keep going. Come on. Don't stop. Let's go. Right? It's the fucking doctor's responsibility and the ref to make the value judgment, or the corner. But obviously it's tough for the corner to say because you're saying it while your fighter's there and your fighter's going, no, I can see. I'm good. Right? But, you got to give Tim Tszyu credit because he made that fight card. He made that pay-per-view card. If it wasn't for him, PBC and Al Heyman would have lost a lot of money. AI should help select the fights, some type of software. I don't know about that. We have great matchmakers. The problem is that certain promotional companies don't want to work with other promotional companies. So certain fights that should get made don't get made. I thought I heard Tszyu's team only did a verbal rematch agreement and nothing on paper. Yeah, apparently that is the situation. And it's understandable because it was done in 13 days, right? The replacement opponent. So it's hard to expect written paperwork and contracts to be written up in a circumstance like that. So a lot of it is often verbal. And literally contracts we've seen in the past, people have argued both sides. Oh, how do you do something when there's no contract? But then other people have talked about the fact that, the contracts have been verbal, right? Which, I mean, as a fighter, you're stupid to fucking not have everything written down, right? You should be pushing your team, your lawyers, to fucking get that shit written fucking on paper. But we'll see what happens moving forward. Rigo jumped up 2 weight classes for Loma. So let's see Inui do it for Tank. Oh my God, another fucking idiot. Another fucking idiot. See, the difference, dumbass, is that literally for Inui to do that, he would be in his seventh weight division. His seventh. Rigo jumped up and was in his third weight division. Inui's already been through more fucking than three weight divisions. So how come Tank doesn't jump up and fight Bud Crawford at 154? That would be almost similar. But of course, you would fucking lose your shit if somebody was talking about that, wouldn't you? Because guys like you aren't boxing fans, you're just race baiters. You hate to see a non-black fighter succeed. So you fucking hold him to certain criticisms and certain expectations that you would never hold a black fighter to, right? And that statement exposes you as an idiot. And everyone here can see it. Everyone that will watch this video blatantly can see that you're a fucking moron. But welcome to the channel. I don't think Thurman was really injured. He never posted the x-ray. Yeah, but dudes very rarely post the x-rays. Stitz said he told the doctors to stop the Vladimir Williamson fight over Vlad's cut. Reed Rigo was going bare knuckles boxing. Yeah. He said the cut man did a bad job. Did he? Okay. For that idiot's logic, let's have Tank move up and fight Boots. Exactly. Well, that's the point, right? Guys like him, they're stupid. They don't understand that Inui's already been through 5 weight divisions. And he'd have to go through 26, 30, 35. So he would literally be equaling what Manny Pacquiao did. Yet Manny Pacquiao didn't do that in the course of a fucking week and a half. Right? And there's only one fighter in history who's done that, Manny Pacquiao. Tank Davis is a one-weight world champion who was just given a title to become a two-weight world champion. And maybe he'll go up and fight Cruz in a rematch to become a three-weight world champion, all fighting fucking in-house PBC opponents. But you're okay with that. You'd rather talk about Inui fighting him than actually have him fight Shakur, Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, or fucking Devin Haney. All superstar fights. Like literally, a real boxing fan wants those fights. You don't need to search fucking divisions below like Tank Davis did when he fought Garcia, pulled him up from 130 to fight him at 135. You don't need to do that if you got a lot of competition in your division. The whole reason Lomachenko fought Rigo is because none of the champions at 130 would fight him. Tank Davis, blatantly ducking him. So literally the only guy that showed any interest in fighting him was Rigo, because all the other guys ducked him blatantly. Your man ducked him like crazy. Oh, come on. Eat 2 hard-boiled eggs and was jump up from 108 to 122. No, see, that's again stupid fucking people with stupid opinions, right? Small people, right? Guys that fight these weights are small people. They don't fucking carry as much weight as we do. So for them, it's all about percentage. You look at the percentage, and that's what you have to look at. Do the math, look at the percentage from 108 to 122 based on your body size, and then compare that to somebody else. The reality is, how much has fucking Tank Davis moved up? 5 pounds. But you're okay with that. It's okay. It's okay that Tank's only moved up 5 pounds. Vitaly Lewis was a bad cut. Yep. Tank ducking Ortiz. He don't want no smoke. Of course he's ducking Virgil Ortiz. That dude's ducking Virgil. Tank is ducking the winner of Bivol and Better BF. That would be a great fight, pound for pound. But Tank don't want that smoke. Tank can eat a T-bone steak and fight at welterweight. 140 at least, 140. But that guy literally said 140 is too big and he doesn't want to go to 140 to fight Devin Haney. But you want Inui to go up and fight him at 135. Dude, like, are you a boxing fan or just a fanboy? Because if you're a boxing fan, tell me out of these fights what you would rather see in rankings. And I'll put it right here. Tank versus what? Oh, man. Haney. Shakur, Lopez, Loma, Inouye. In order of who you'd prefer Tank Davis to fight, what order would you put it? Pac-Man did it. Oh my God, you're stupid, right? Roy Jones jumped up massive weights from 154 to heavyweight. Yeah. And he skipped cruiserweight, fought the worst fucking champion available at heavyweight to win the title. Like, the reality is just answer my fucking question and stop being a fucking fanboy, because that's what you are. You're literally holding Inouye to criticism you wouldn't hold fucking Tank Davis to. Okay, so Tank Davis, go fucking fight Bud Crawford at 154. I mean, Jesus Christ, Pac-Man did it. Roy Jones did it. So Tank Davis can do it too. But of course, you won't hold Tank Davis to that. You'd be critical of people that ask Tank Davis to do something like that. That's your bias. Tank was already ducked smaller people like Lomachenko and Farmer. Laugh out loud, this dude is a clown. Good morning, Mr. Newton. Roy Dixon, good morning. So guys, put in order who you would prefer Tank Davis to fight. Haney, Shakur, Lopez, Loma, and Inouye. Put it in order by number so we can see. I'll do mine right here. Here's mine. I'd prefer Haney. That's the bigger money fight. He could get paid shitloads of cash fighting Haney in Saudi Arabia. Shakur, obviously a unification fight. Two of the best fighters at 135 pounds. Lopez, stylistically, that would be a great fight for as long as it lasted. Loma, obviously this fight should have happened at 130 pounds, but Tank ducked him. And then Inouye afterwards, even though I'm sure I could think of another fucking 5 fighters I'd prefer him to fight before fucking Inouye. Pac-Man was malnourished, which allowed him to fight at lower weights. Haney, Shakur. I'd like to see Loma versus Loma or Shakur. Petraza gave an interview. Tank even wanted a rehydration clause. He wanted a rehydration clause on Petraza. Petraza couldn't even make weight at 130 pounds. He was talking about moving up out of that weight division before he fought Tank Davis, which is why obviously he moved to 135 afterwards and then moved to 140. So even his best win, he was fighting a guy that was weight drained. Gary, what's up? Yeah, you can't help stupid. But let's look at the other fights that are scheduled. Obviously, then we got Fury Usyk, which is a great fight. That card has been listed. Oh, I should have listed that. I have the image for that here, but I forgot to put that here. Navarrete Baranchek. I hear a lot of people are critical of that fight, but it's a vacant title. Navarrete is trying to become a 4-weight world champion, and then potentially he'll fight Loma, Zepeda, Muratalla, or Lomachenko after that, right? So he's going to be back in good fights right afterwards, so it won't take much time. Taylor Cottrell, better be a Bivol. Tank versus Martin, which is obviously Zaki King is fucking super stoked about. He already bought the pay-per-view. Matias versus Paro, and Estrada versus Ben Rodriguez, which is a fucking great fight. And the winner of that fight definitely should be pound for pound top 10, without a doubt. I mean, Estrada should already be there, but inactivity. I was talking to Fisher from Ring Magazine, and he was saying the reason Estrada wasn't on the current pound for pound top 10 list is because of inactivity. But they have Errol Spence on their pound for pound list. He's been active and literally got knocked the fuck out. Estrada in his last fight put his most dominant performance, beating Roman Gonzalez in a real victory, right? The best victory that he literally had. Now you have a problem with quiet man John Ruiz. Oh my God, dude. You're a clown, right? You know, That's what you are. The reality is he fought the weakest heavyweight champion available to him. I don't have a problem with it. I wasn't hating on Roy Jones for doing it. I was happy he did it. But I'm just telling you the facts. What do you think about Charlo versus Janibek? That fight ain't fucking happening. No way, no fucking how. Charlo gonna fight Caleb Plant at 168 pounds. And the younger Charlo, if he comes up, he's gonna be fighting fucking what's his face? The Dominican kid. But they're not gonna fight Janibek. No fucking way. High risk, low reward. They don't want to fight him because they're not going to make a lot of money out of him. If they beat him, they're not going to get a lot of praise for beating him. Haney Tio Shakur, Loma Anui for me. No, I think that's legit. Even though you want him to just step up and face two guys from 140. Come on, guy. You're being a little mean to the poor guy. He is just a small fellow, right? If Crean Ryan knocks out Haney, is Devin able to come back from that? If Ryan Garcia knocks out Devin Haney, that would be tough for Devin Haney for sure. But stylistically, Devin Haney is not the kind of fighter that's relied on being a bully, power, walking through guys, beating guys down. He's a boxer. So chances are he'll come back and just become safer, more boring, more stick and move, right? And that's probably what he would resort to. But I don't think it ruins his career. He can still go on to have a long career. I mean, we've seen plenty of great fighters get knocked out and bounce back. Only people I see beating Prime Roy are Hagler and McKellen. Well, McKellen, of course, has a chance because of his power. One punch lands and it might be all he needs, right? But chances are he probably fucking get knocked out like he did against Nigel Benn, against Roy, who was a way better fighter than Nigel Benn. And as far as Hagler, Hagler would have a tough fucking time trying to catch Roy Jones. He'd have a tough time trying to catch Roy Jones. He had a hard time trying to catch an old, inactive Sugar Ray Leonard. What's he going to do with Roy Jones? Man, it's going to be fucking an uphill battle for sure. Janibek, no chance. Jamel doesn't fight anyone that's a threat. I actually put $100 on Ryan KO in the first 6 rounds. Well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the first 6 rounds for sure. Everyone's avoiding Janibek. Well, to be fair, middleweight division is trash. There's fucking nobody in it. Even when you look at the rankings, even the fucking guys that are ranked in the rankings, garbage. Garbage. Like for Janibek, the problem is you get a Charlo fight or nothing, because none of the other fighters in that division fucking are marketable. Laura is 40-something years old. I mean, he wasn't marketable in his prime. He ain't marketable now. His best bet is probably to move up to 168, which is a money division, right? And because he's a smaller fighter without a lot of power, maybe he can get some of those fights, right? Because people will see that he's more vulnerable. But I think he'll be able to carry the 168 pounds, and potentially he needs to do what Sergio Martinez did. He moved away from 154 to 160 because that way he was able to get better money fights. Roy beat best weight 160, 168 for sure. Janibek overhyped. Still, I need to see more. Yeah, no. See, you saying Janibek is overhyped is probably the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. Nobody's hyping up Janibek. Literally. Show me one fucking channel, one article hyping up Janibek, please. Just one. Just one. People being overhyped are guys like fucking Abdullah Mason, Krimel Moten, right? Fucking a bunch of other dudes who literally haven't even had 10-round fucking fights yet and are considered already. Some people literally had Abdullah Mason on their pound for pound lists, right? That's overhyped. Both guys look like they're going to be pound for pound superstars. Don't get me wrong. But at this point, none of them have fucking done anything. So it's overhyped. At least Janibek's become a unified champion. When Bud beats Boots, the PBC fanboys will jump to Laura and Adamus. Well, Bud's not going to fucking fight Boots. And Laura and Adamas are at 160, and I don't think anyone would give those guys a chance against Bud Crawford anyway. Problem is, nobody will fight Janibek. That's true, but there's nobody at middleweight for him to fight. How did you think Nonito Rachel Donaire did training Sarafa last week? Exactly what you'd expect. Shit. Fucking her being a trainer, give me a fucking break. I mean, this is a problem with feminism. Because you marry a boxer who is a legend, all of a sudden you think that you're a fucking trainer. And you start training other fighters because you've been in the gym watching your husband train. And you've seen what trainers have told him and what they've made him do. So all of a sudden now you're a fucking expert. Okay. Good luck with that. I mean, Jesus Christ, I wouldn't fucking have Donaire as my trainer. His ring IQ is garbage. And I'm a huge Donaire fan. But when have you ever seen Donaire in a fight where his ring IQ was the difference between winning and losing? I've seen the situation. And in those circumstances, he fucking lost every single fight. He never won a fight where ring IQ could have turned the balance to his victory, right? Whether we're talking about fucking Frampton, fucking Anui in the first fight, he showed Rigo, fucking never used a jab. Like, his ring IQ is straight up shit. So you're going to have him as a trainer, a guy that doesn't even understand what he needs to do in the ring to be successful. He's relied on his left hand, and it's been great, but also limited. Zaki acting like he saw Janibek as a future pound-for-pound Hall of Famer. Exactly. Like, people are talking about him like fucking as Golovkin. Same country. Not nearly the same fucking buzz. I wonder why. Because people are not fucking full of shit. No, everyone's saying Janibek is... No, everyone's saying, oh, Janibek's overrated. Yeah, overrated. He's not overrated because he's fucking not even being talked about. You better watch Abdullah Mason. See, again, you being an idiot. You didn't hear fucking my statement? I said that Abdullah Mason's probably going to be a pound-for-pound fucking superstar. But at this point, he's overrated because he hasn't fucking even had a 10-round fucking fight yet. And already guys like you are acting like he's pound-for-pound. Fuck you. If GG versus Janibek, it will be good for Janibek. You say, fuck me. It'd be good for Janibek only because he'd get GG's name recognition, beating an old fighter who's well past his best. But a prime GGG would kill Janibek. Kill him. Janibek wasn't as good as Golovkin as an amateur, and he's not as good as Golovkin as a pro. I mean, he is a low version. I mean, a different style fighter than obviously Golovkin, but Golovkin's a much better fighter than Janibek. Janibek versus Amo Williams. Yeah, see, the reality is not that fight, Machado, but they're talking about the English fighter facing Amo Williams on that Saudi Arabian card. Shamza Hamza. Sorry if I butchered his name. I like the kid. He looks good. But that's the fight they're talking about. I love that fight. You have Hamza fight fucking Amo Williams. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, they're both getting good money. It's on a big pay-per-view card. The winner gets a lot of recognition. And then Janibek takes on the winner for his unified titles. That's a great fight, right? And maybe for Janibek, the best thing he can do is hope to go do a fight in Saudi Arabia as well. I laugh when people say Benavidez and Boots on the pound-for-pound list and leave Canelo off the list. Yeah, well, that just tells you everything you need to know. Paise, sorry. Possible Ernesto Machado and Mason, I like to see. Don't be surprised if John Boxing adds Wilder to his pound-for-pound list if he beats Zhang. Well, The truth is, I expect fucking Zhang to beat Wilder, but it's a good fight. Both those guys are happy that they're dealing with Saudi Arabia, coming off of losses. They're both putting into big opportunity fights right afterwards. So congratulations to them. The money windfall is working for them. Here's a fight, obviously that is a very intriguing matchup. Hitchens versus Lemos. Then you also have Pacheco versus McCallum on this DAZN doubleheader fight this weekend. This is the only real interesting fight card happening this weekend. But this is a good matchup. Lemos is coming off of a very good performance, even though he's been very inactive, whereas Hitchens has been pretty busy. Stylistically, you can see Hitchens would be a real tough ask for Lemos because he's very long, very long, and he's not going to be standing in front of Lemos. So Lemos is going to have to cut off that ring, get to that body, get on the inside, pressure him, and get to him. And as far as Pacheco, I love this kid. At 168 pounds, this kid is easily one of the best fighters in that weight division. He's a good fighter, man. Looks great. Janet Beck has a problem. He doesn't know English. Yeah, and obviously that's also a thing, right? It's hard to market yourself in America if you don't speak English because it's hard for people to relate to you, right? Especially when you're always using a translator. Do you believe Shiraz Janibek will be happen? I think Shiraz needs another fight. That's why I say if he fights on that Saudi Arabian pay-per-view card against Amal Williams, then I think it's a real possibility. Lemos Hitchens, I thought Lemos was a lightweight. I can't remember. Was his last big win at lightweight? Here you go right here. This is the Hitchens card, DAZN. Richard Hitchens fighting Gustav Lemos from Argentina. Diego Pacheco versus Sean McCalman. I'm not sure who that kid is. Obviously, Diego needs to really, after this fight, step up his level of competition because 168 pounds has a lot of really good fighters. Not big name fighters, but a lot of guys like him. Great power, potential, undefeated records, a lot of real interesting matchups. It's very similar to the 140-pound division as far as some of the great fights you could potentially make. Gali Yafai, the third Yafai brother, obviously the youngest, the Olympic gold medalist, continue to stay busy. Mark Castro, obviously a guy who has gotten a lot of attention. Signing with DAZN, was a good amateur, but I'm not very excited about him. And then Sky Nicholson, isn't she from Australia? Fighting Sarah Mahfood. I don't watch too much women's boxing, but I know Sky Nicholson. I think she's a pretty good-looking girl, right? What advice would you give Janibek? He just needs to stay busy, right? Like Golovkin did. Golovkin went to Monaco to make fights, to keep himself fighting 3 times a year, keep himself in the media, keeps his name out there. He fought a lot, right? 3 times a year. And he'd go to Monaco and fight in Monaco for good little paydays, small venues, but good fights against mediocre opponents, but just staying busy consistently, right? And the more you stay busy, the better it is for a guy like Janibek. He's 30 years old. Now is the fucking time, right? You have unified titles. Potentially, a lot of those guys from 154 are going to move up to your division. And if you're the king of that division, you're right there. I mean, the other Charlos out of that division. Lara eventually is out. He's like 90 years old. Carlos Adames, that's a fight you'd like to make, but a lot of that depends on the PBC and if they ever are interested in actually working with anybody. Clarice Shields, the GWOAT. Oh my God. Actually, she's not. I mean, her resume compared to Katie Taylor, it ain't even fucking close. What Katie Taylor has done in women's boxing is like what Caitlin Clark is doing in NCAA women's basketball, right? She's fighting literally everyone. Her resume is fucking great, and she's fighting great opponents for world titles. Clarissa Shields has mostly fought for vacant belts. She has a few good opponents. I'm not hating, but the problem with her is she's like the Russell brothers. She thinks she's better than she is. She thinks that she's a superstar. She thinks she's fucking Angel Reese, that she's the best woman college basketball player, right? And she thinks she should be paid according to that. But the reality is, she's boring. She's a bitch. And most people fucking don't want to listen to her. And even fewer want to actually watch her fight, especially when you're not going to fight great opposition. Katie Taylor's been fighting some fucking great fighters. Are you from Poland? Are you talking about me? Poland? Do you know where Poland is? You have any idea about Poland? What about me seems Polish? I hate the PBC. Janabek from my city, and I can tell him your advice. Do you talk to Janabek? Nice. Yeah, nice. You should definitely stay. He needs to stay more active. Obviously, him and his team, they will know better than you and me what possibility there are. But I mean, a guy like him, even if he's not fighting in the States, and I'm not sure what his contract is like uh, and what things he's able to do, but staying active is the best thing for him to do. Stay active, keep knocking these dudes out, keep beating these guys, keep putting your name out there consistently, right? And you get to a point where people like Zach are going to say that you're overhyped, that you're a hype job, right? Even though you defended your titles 10 times, and they'll say, well, you're not fighting anybody legitimate. But then all the legitimate guys are ducking you. So what can you do? Angel Reese is a champion. When will Clark step up and accomplish this? Well, a champion. In basketball, we know that basketball is a team sport. So you're only as good as your team. I mean, let's keep that out there. You can you can use that, but I mean, Angel Reese hasn't fucking done anything outside of winning that title compared to what fucking Caitlin Clark has done. Self-proclaimed quote. Well, exactly. She's like Floyd, right? How do you fucking take someone serious that is self-proclaimed? Like all these kind of titles that people give you, it should be given you. You're christened, right? Like the Queen christens you Sir. You don't call yourself fucking Sir and all of a sudden expect everyone else to start doing it. Clarissa is unfortunately in higher weight classes where the level of talent isn't good. That's true, Gary. That's a reality, and I've stated that, right? Saying that unfortunately for her, she's not like Katie, who's really at potentially the best weight class available, and has fighters below and above who are great that she can potentially fight. For Carissa, it's not as easy, right? But yeah, you know, uh, you have the circumstance you're dealt with, right? I mean, she's a bigger girl, so unfortunately, that's what she has to deal with. Actually, he big guy, maybe he took look like no, I know he's pretty tall, but he's pretty lean, right? But that's why I say I think he could eventually move to 168, and 168 has a lot bigger fights available, a lot more money fights. Obviously, with Canelo there, it's the happening division, right? So, I mean, stay busy, do what you're doing, but he's not going to become undisputed at middleweight because those PBC titles are never going to get close to him. Activity is a big deal, though, to build megastars without it. Exactly. You got to stay busy, man. Stay fucking busy, right? No other woman boxer has been on Clarissa's level. Layla Ali was beating hairdressers. You can't blame Layla Ali for beating who she was beating. She was one of the people who really opened the doors for people like Clarissa Shields. If it wasn't for Layla Ali, Clarissa Shields probably wouldn't have became a boxer, right? Literally, Katie Taylor, thanks to Katie Taylor, Olympic female boxing was put on thanks to her, right? Before she pushed for it and was dominant and really doing well in amateur boxing to a point where then they're like, okay, maybe we should represent. I'm making a trend with you. I don't know what you're talking about. Thanks, bro. Southpaw on the live said that Demetrius Andrade would beat Rocky Marciano. Oh my God. He couldn't beat fucking David Benavidez, but he's going to beat Rocky Marciano. Christy Martin was a bigger star than Carissa in women's boxing. She was, yeah, the coal miner's daughter, right? The coal miner's daughter was really the first big woman star, and then obviously Ali came in thanks to her father. Ann Wolfe was never a star, but she was dangerous. And then you had the probably the best women's boxer, Lucia Riker, who was fucking great, great fighter, but European, right? Didn't stay as active as she should have, did a lot of weird sort of boxing matches and a lot of different things, and then obviously movies and whatnot. Ann Wolfe was training James Kirkland. I remember. Yep, she was. Unfortunately, James Kirkland is a fucking idiot. Southpaw is the same dude that said Fulton would stop Inouye. Yeah, dudes like that, right? They always are pushing some sort of fucking narrative, hating somebody somehow. Yeah, Katie got women's boxing in the Olympics. Sean, you know you're boxing. But even though Katie did that, you think somebody like fucking Zaki is going to give her fucking respect and praise? Of course not. She's not black. So she gets no fucking praise at all. If you ain't black, you whack, right? And Paul Press or Paul, who is he? Paul Pierce. He came out with that and said that, oh man, couldn't believe this white girl beating all these black girls at LSU, right? This mentality is what the majority of black American people think. Not all, of course, but the majority feel that physically, athletically, they are superior and that they should always beat everybody else, whether it's Asian or Caucasian. And so these people, when they're talking about racism, it's ironic because within their whole fucking concept of sports, they feel they are the superior being, right? So your whole basis for talking about sports comes from racism, where you're never going to give a non-black person as much credit as you give a black person because you don't feel any fucking white person is as good as you are. So, you can't have arguments because this is what people think. Paul Pierce just fucking came out recently and said it. I played basketball in Toronto. All my friends felt this way. I went to gyms consistently, being the only white guy there. And this is consistent, always. You got to prove that you can play. Who's the white boy, right? No, it is racism. It's not a fact. See, there you are. You just prove your stupidity and your ignorance. 80% of basketball is made up of black Americans. What does that have to do with fucking anything? It's because in America, the majority of people that play basketball are black Americans. So the percentage of NBA players are black American. But the percentage of MVPs over the last so many years are non-fucking Americans. So what does that tell you? You can have all the athleticism in the world and you're still not the best. That must hurt because sports is not all about athleticism. And there's a lot of brothers out there, and I'm sure you could even attest to it. Just because they're black, it don't mean they're athletic. I played basketball and volleyball with a lot of brothers that couldn't jump as high as I could. White boys can dunk. I mean, Jesus Christ, the best dunkers in the world right now, white. But, remember Tanya Harding boxing? I don't remember her boxing. I remember her getting her boyfriend to club Nancy Kerrigan. Her versus Nancy Kerrigan would have been legendary. Oh my God. Nancy would have had to use her jab and control the outside. Basketball is a global sport, Sean, and still the same percent. 80, I think you're wrong with 80% of the NBA. It's not black American. You could fucking Google that right now. Where's my phone? Because I think those numbers are off. But yeah, basketball is a global sport. But a lot of people, just because NBA is global, doesn't mean they want to go play in the NBA. I live in Taiwan, and I'm next to China. There's a shitload of people that play basketball. But the majority of Taiwanese people aim to play in the Taiwanese Basketball League, the same league that Dwight Howard just recently was playing in. And if you're even better, you want to play in China where the money is better, or maybe even Japan, where, of course, the lifestyle is better. right? A lot of these people don't want to go play in the US. They don't want to deal with people like you. They don't want to deal with racism. They don't want to deal with the violence, gun murders, and fucking crazy shit that goes on. So they have language barriers, culture barriers. They prefer to stay in their own country. Best dunkers are Anthony Edwards and Joe Morant. That ain't true. The guy that won the last dunk contest was a white guy that doesn't even play in the NBA. And he's not even the best dunker on fucking, the best dunker is a white guy online. You can go check him out. He's doing dunks that fucking Anthony Edwards and Jay Morant don't even come close to doing. They're great in-game dunkers and obviously super athletic and great fucking players. So I ain't hating on those two guys because I have a video earlier this year hyping up fucking Anthony Edwards, talking about how this was going to be his breakout superstar year. And who was right about that? That's right, this fucking guy. Because I thought fucking on Team USA, he was by and far the best player. Basketball, it's black sport. Any news on AJ's next opponent, or is he waiting for Usyk Fury winner? He's waiting. He's waiting. They've even talked about that because there's a rematch clause, but we've seen that with Saudi Arabia, they don't really give a shit about that. Right? They're just as willing to say, okay, fine, you got a rematch clause, but whatever. We're going to pay you fucking big money to fight this guy instead so that we can make this fight now because this fight's more relevant and people want to see this fight. They don't want to see you guys fight again right now, but you win this fight and then we'll do the rematch, right? So they expect that maybe they can get the winner, specifically if it's Fury. AJ's next opponent, I'd love it to be Hrgovic. That would be a good fight. I live in more white suburban area, but moved because of all the child predators, mass shootings. See, now you just sound like a fucking idiot. More black Americans get shot every fucking year than anybody else by black Americans. Chicago is a fucking murder zone where kids and fucking normal pedestrians, not gangbangers, getting killed fucking every weekend. So you talking about fucking suburbia fucking being dangerous. Give me a break. Yes, I know. There's no black fucking child predators out there. No, there's none. It's all us. Whitey, we do everything. We're the trouble fucking for everything. It's always us. Just blame us. That's okay. We do everything. Yes, Mac McClub won the last dunk contest. White dude. Yes, he did. This year he didn't win, but he was in the finals, right? Who won this year? I can't even remember. All I know is people were critical of this year's dunk contest and talking about having it cut out. Jack John boxing that way. Yeah, I know. I don't think it's John because I don't think John is a troll. He's just a fucking racist. I wrote about the fight between Charlo and Janibek for a reason. I know a close friend of Janibek, and everything is going towards the fact that there will take place. Which Charlo? Middleweight Charlo, WBC champion, or small Charlo moving up from 154 pounds? And where will that fight happen? On PBC or DAZN? Don't get me wrong, I would be happy to see that fight happen. That would be great. But what probably should happen is Charlo probably should fight Erislandy Lara first and unify those two titles. And then he can fight Janibek for undisputed. That would be the perfect scenario, right? And it would build up the fight in the process as well. It'd be interesting. WBC champion Charlo. Okay. He better fight somebody because Carlos Adames has been sitting there waiting for his opportunity for a long time. And still the WBC is holding him fucking out, which is unfortunate. If you were going to make a fight for Janibek, I'd prefer Carlos Adames. Carlos Adames, Janibek, I think would be a way better fight because Adames is coming off of good victories. He's busy, active. He ain't a fucking drug, fucking crackhead, fucking mental patient like Charlo is. So you don't know what to expect from this version of Charlo. I heard Charlo had a seizure, and that's why he's said he's out. Could be bullshit. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Jamal, not Jamal. I never know which one's which. Carlos is dangerous. He is. It's a great fight. But Carlos is beatable, right? He already got beat by that one-dimensional Brazilian fighter at 154. The Fury beat Usyk and AJ. Is he a top 10 heavyweight of all time? If Fury beats AJ and Usyk, uh, he's definitely in the conversation. He's definitely in the conversation. Becoming undisputed, beating Wilder, Usyk, AJ, Dillian White, and Klitschko. It's not a deep resume, but you literally beat all the top guys, right? So, it's pretty spectacular. But, that's why we talk boxing, because everything is subjective, right? You can't act as if it is or it isn't a fact, because, people have different opinions. Some people will put him top 5, right? Other people won't even have him in the top 10. But I definitely think he's in the conversation for sure. And he deserves to be in the conversation if he beats Usyk and then goes on to beat AJ afterwards. More power to him. That fucking big mouth fucking gypsy. I ain't a fan of Tyson Fury. Vitaly versus Fury would have been a hell of a fight. Vitaly would have knocked fucking Tyson Fury out. Would have knocked his ass out. Vitaly, yeah. I just think he's better. Better than fucking his brother. And here's the fight. This is the fight that I'm excited about. Bam Rodriguez coming off of that fucking stellar performance to unify titles at 112, now jumping up to take Estrada. But then again, to state a statement that I made earlier on in this video, it's unfortunate that Estrada has been so inactive, right? Because of his inactivity, this potentially could affect his performance against a guy like Bam Rodriguez, who's more active, much younger, right? In his prime and looking great. But yet, when you look at these two guys and what they've done, fantastic, right? Obviously, we saw Estrada stop Quadras, dominate and destroy Rungbasai, and then Bam came out afterwards and equaled, if not bettered, what Estrada already did, and then beat Sonny Edwards in what was a fantastic performance. And now jumping up to face Estrada, great fight. This is what boxing needs, matchups like this. The USSR school, crazy, Beterbiev, Loma, Gigi, Usyk, Janibek, Kovalev, Zhu. Yeah, no, I mean, Russia and Cuba, right? The old communist bloc, they had great boxing programs. And that's why, obviously, the U.S. dominated boxing when those two countries were communist, because they weren't putting fighters into the pro game. Once the Berlin Wall came down and now you had Eastern Bloc fighters start to become professional, and now we're getting some Cuban fighters as well, it becomes a lot more of a competitive situation than it was before. Big baby Jared Anderson coming up. Get your popcorn. Big KO incoming. Well, yeah, he's fighting a nobody, so he better get a KO. The problem with Jared Anderson is, as excited as people are about him, his attitude has chased a lot of fans away. When he said that he doesn't really like boxing, that he wants to retire when he's like, 25 or something, some ridiculous age. He said he wants to retire, said that he's all about the money, doesn't care about legacy. These kind of statements from a young up-and-comer, it's serious red flags, man. Like, how are you going to go on to be great if you're saying that kind of shit already? Because at his age, he should be trying to do what fucking Shakur Stevenson is doing. He should be like representing like Shakur, fucking angry, hungry, chasing everyone. wanting to prove everybody wrong, wanting to show he's pound for pound the best in the business. You may not like Shakur or think he's the best, but at least his attitude shows a guy who fucking feels he is. And that's what Big Baby Anderson just ain't pushing, right? Unfortunately, because I think he'd be great for the States to have a great Black American world champion. I mean, it's been a long time since they had one, a long time. Who's the last great Black American world champion they had? I mean, Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. Uh, who? Those two? Has there been anybody else afterwards? Uh, a lot of people are picking Estrada. I'm going Bam. I love Estrada, and I'd love to see Estrada win just because you hate to see young up-and-comers always just take over the sport. You like to see once in a while the old veteran guys slap the shit out of these guys and send them back, kind of like when Roman Gonzalez beat the crap out of Martinez and sent him back to 112 pounds, crying. But at this point, you got to sort of favor Bam. Bam will win. Estrada is too old for this young killer. I think so. Man, wish Bam was a little bigger. Him versus Inui would be awesome. Him versus Nakatani was a fight I was always asking for, but their paths just don't seem to pass. Vitaly would have smoked Fury. Black Americans turned pro at 18. Don't forget. No, that's not true. There's a bunch of fucking guys that became Olympians that didn't turn pro at fucking 18. So you're wrong. Europeans and Cubans turn pro at 28, so they're a bit more polished coming out. Well, no, majority of them don't turn pro at 28, but yes, they turn pro in their 20s, probably by 24, right? Like Lomachenko was 24, 25, and a lot of guys currently are around the same age that turn pro. And a lot of guys aren't amateurs, so they didn't have long amateur pedigree. So a lot of those guys are literally just coming out earlier as well. The Cubans, they obviously tend to be around much longer. Thanks, bro. I follow you. Thank you very much. Bam came out of nowhere during the pandemic, and he's been on a tear, taking out legends and Sonny, who was arguably top 10 pound for pound. Oh, top 10 pound for pound. Nobody in their right mind had Sonny fucking Edwards top 10 pound for pound based on beating who? I mean, he beat some good opponents, but let's fucking keep it real. People were saying Shakur was ducking Muratalla, but watching his performance last week, I don't see it. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Performances don't mean anything because we saw Shakur look like shit in his last performance. Muratalla looked like shit in his performance. Tio looked like shit in his performance. I mean, the reality is styles make fights. Muratalla in all his fights prior to that looked fucking great. Apparently they're saying Muratalla is struggling to make 135. So don't be surprised to see him move up to 140, where maybe his performances will get back to where they were. What do you think about Tyson versus Paul? You know, I'm not into those circus fights, but I'm a big Mike Tyson fan. So I'd like to see him knock Jake Paul out. And no hate to Jake Paul. I respect Jake Paul's game. More power to him. But, you know, I would fucking hate to see Mike Tyson get beat by Jake Paul. Jake sadly knocks out Mike. No fucking way. Mike hasn't been the same since Douglas and gets knocked out by a journeyman. Fucking Jake ain't even a fucking journeyman, so that doesn't matter. Yeah, I probably went over the top about Sonny. Yeah, probably a little. Prime Riddick Bowe puts Fury in a body bag. Well, that's easy to say, but he didn't put fucking the Polish fighter in a body bag. Literally, the only reason he won those two fights with the Polish kid is because the Polish kid fouled his way away from victory. But if he hadn't fouled, he would have beat Riddick Bowe in both of those fights. So what are you talking about? See, it's easy to talk shit just because Riddick Bowe's black and you're black. So obviously you got to support the black guy. But unfortunately, I'm not a Fury fan. I don't support him because he's white. I support him because he's 6'9", skilled, and he's going to be a tough out for anyone. but I hope Usyk beats him. I'm scared for Mike, Sean. Well, I think right now Jake is scared of Mike because he knows when he gets in there, it's not going to be like all these other dudes that he's been fighting. He's fighting a real boxer. Even though he's 50 something years old, he's a real boxer. His mentality is no different now than it was when he was fucking 21. So, those first 3 rounds, if Jake can get through those first 3 rounds, maybe he can go on to beat Mike. But those first 3 rounds, I don't see him fucking dealing with those body shots, with those hooks, with that hand speed. Mike ain't afraid to fucking engage. Jake Paul is still just what do you call it when you're just learning something? Um, Not a novice. He's still a novice to boxing. He still don't like to get hit in the face, right? He's still a little weary of getting punched. So Tyson ain't weary of fucking getting punched. He fucking ain't afraid to fucking catch one off the dome. Mike Tyson is a top 10 heavyweight for me, but I feel his fans overdid it. Well, they did overdo it because a lot of the people that were fans of Mike were the same fans like Zaki, fans of him because he's black and representing the culture, right? The reality is Tyson did what he did and he did it fast. And unfortunately, too much fame ruined him. I mean, potentially he could have been one of the best fighters of all time, but too much fame, too quick, didn't have his trainer who died, and basically the wheels came off. And, you can't blame Tyson because he is who he is, right? He's a hood rat who fucking was uneducated, living on the roof, fucking taking care of his pigeons, right? And fucking doing B&E to get money, or not B&E, what do you call it? Like fucking stick up kid, right? In New York City to get money because he was big, scary, and aggressive. And then they turned him into a boxer and he utilized everything he had and became a monster. But even when we saw him fight guys like Tony Tucker and some of these other big heavyweights, he struggled, right? They were too big. They smothered him. Once he got on the inside, they just held him and frustrated him, right? He needed to continue to improve. Unfortunately, he didn't. And it's disappointing because what he could have been, Joe Frazier 2.0, right? Joe Frazier 2.0. I know Roy is a real boxer, but I wasn't overly impressed with Tyson, and that fight was 4 years ago. Yeah, but that's because he wasn't allowed to hit Roy Jones. What do you think about Ryan Garcia, Illuminati, and other crap? Oh my fucking God. I listened to him once on a live and I don't want to listen to this guy because he's just making me fucking dislike him, right? It's like these young people that feel they know so much, they should just shut the fuck up because they don't know fucking anything. And that's him. He just sounds like an idiot. Pigeons' lives matter. Yes, they do, Joker. Don King manipulated Tyson, never should have let Rooney go. Rooney went on and won a title with Vinny Paz. I don't get why people support people just because of skin color. These people are manipulated and divided without knowing they're being manipulated. That's true. Well, the new thing, right? For the culture, right? Angel Reese won a title for the culture, right? It's all for the culture now. But this is a stupid mentality because that culture that people are trying to perpetuate, that doesn't represent every Black American because there's a lot of Black Americans that don't live that culture, right? It's just, you're limiting yourself by putting labels and putting yourself in a box, right? And that's the whole problem. The world is a big fucking place, and now people are working around the world, but these people still have this small fucking mentality, right? $80 for Haney Ryan is a joke. I agree. I think Garcia uses drugs. I definitely think he's fucking out of his mind. Ryan KO Devin the next day. Tank is pound for pound number one. Watch. Well, that goes with both people. 78 in the LDBC. If Devin knocks out Ryan, then he's going to be number one above Inui and above fucking Bud Crawford. You know, already we see part of the culture, right? The culture war within the culture. We saw it with Spence and Crawford. Now, of course, it's Haney and Tank Davis. Everyone's pointing fingers, blaming Whitey because all the problems in the world are our fault. But most of the problems going on with boxing in the U.S. is all coming from within the culture, right? They won't hold fucking the PBC and Al Heyman accountable because he represents the culture, even though every single fighter on the card is fucking Latino. Every card is sold to Latinos. I mean, Latino deep. That's the PBC cards, the same as everyone. Only color that matters in boxing is green. Well, that's fucking the reality, man. You ask any promoter or anyone that is not a boxer, maybe not trainers, but like, you know who I mean, managers and promoters, for them, the only thing that matters is green. They don't care what color these dudes are. They want to know if they can make money from them. And that's the only thing that fucking matters. And in turn, the boxers should be thinking about how they can get paid the most money available. Not like Rolly Romero, walk away from a pay-per-view fucking fight with Ryan Garcia to go fight fucking Cruz on an undercard. Stupid motherfucker. I think Ryan's done. I think Ryan's done for a long time. Mentally, that guy's checked out. But it is what it is. Ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls. There's some of the matchups that we've been talking about. Obviously, Tank Davis and Martin is coming up as well. I mean, I like Tank. Tank's a fun fighter. It'll be an intriguing matchup. What people have been asking Inui to do, fight a black fighter. Finally, Tank Davis is doing that. He's fighting a black fighter. So it'll be interesting to see how he matches up with a guy that is athletic, right? Has good feet, hand speed, and all those things that people attribute to black American fighters. Now Tank Davis is finally fighting one whom is considered a top 10 lightweight. So it'll be interesting to see how he deals with him. I think Tank is just a better boxer, and his power is fucking ridiculous. So eventually, no matter how good you are, I think Tank is going to get to you, unless he fought Loma at 130. Tank is very smart, yes. Sean, do you think Ryan's behavior is hurting the fight? I do, but curious your take on the nonsense. A certain level of craziness and social media bullshit is good for a fight, but when you take it to that next level, like what was that movie where Iron Man fucking was blackface, right? And then the other guy fucking was retarded. What was that movie about Vietnam War? And then you had fucking Tom Cruise, like as the fucking Jewish promoter, fucking bald with big gold chains, fucking dancing to that song. Tropic Thunder. Like, what do they say about fucking being retarded, right? Yeah, everyone knows the name. So you know the quote. What do they say about being retarded? When you're playing a retarded guy, you can't get what? Because that's what Ryan Garcia is doing. He's going from that level where you get a lot of attention to just being over the fucking top, where now no one has faith in you, where now even fans that support you now don't trust you and aren't willing to fucking support you because it seems as if you are just throwing everything away. Frank Martin, better skill set and opponents than a guy like Munguia. So Frank Martin fought better opponents than Jaime Munguia? Okay, name one opponent that Frank Martin fought. Just one. Tell me one opponent that Frank Martin fought. Because Jaime Munguia was a champion and has fought top 10 opponents. Several. Frank Martin never fought a top 10 fucking opponent. Michel Rivera wasn't a top 10 opponent. Michelle Rivera never beat anyone legitimate. Michelle Rivera was actually a drug cheat and now has moved up in weight and left the PBC. No, but he didn't beat Munguia. Munguia got the decision over Dennis Hogan. So the question is, who did Frank Martin fight that was a good fighter? All you say is Rivera. You can't even tell me one opponent Rivera fought, but he's better than people that Munguia fought. Okay. Frank looked like trash in his last fight and ducked Shakur and now hasn't fought in over a year. The PBC fucking way. Now he got that Tank Davis fight and made an extra 0.2 on that million. So instead of getting 1 million, he's getting 1.2. It was well worth the year wait. He could have fought fucking a year ago, beat Shakur for 1 million, and been fighting Tank Davis now for fucking 5 million if he would have got that victory. Right? But that's PBC business motto. Keep it in the house and keep fighters stupid and fucking overly attached to you. But we're still waiting, Zaki. Who has Frank Martin fought that's better than who Jaime Munguia fought? Zaki, yes, he did beat Munguia and got robbed on scorecards. Yeah, but Lomachenko beat fucking Devin Haney and got robbed on the scorecards. I mean, Kovalev beat Andre Ward and got robbed on the scorecards. I mean, that shit happens all the fucking time. As far as it's listed, Dennis Hogan did not win. And you're literally talking about a fight that was fucking how long ago? 8 years ago? My question is for you is now, who has Frank Martin fought that's better? We're still waiting for you, buddy. I hate Munguia because he ducked Janibek. Loma versus Devin was close, no robbery. Oh, yeah, okay. You still not answering the question, Zaki. Who did Frank Martin fight that was better than the opponents Jaime Munguia fought? And yes, Jaime Munguia ducked Charlo and ducked Janibek. But then Andrade also ducked Janibek. That was the fight that should have been made, right? Janibek should have got that Andrade fight instead of Andrade moving up to 168 to fight a fucking cab driver. Saddam Ali, Liam Smith, Derevchenko, John Ryder, all better names than Frank Martin's resume. All better. Saddam Ali, Liam Smith were world champions. Derevchenko, John Ryder, multiple title contenders. And most people think John Ryder beat fucking Smith for that title. Definitely a robbery. 8-4-7-5 Loma. I told you, and you stuck your nose up. No, you said Michelle Rivera. Is Michelle Rivera better than any of the people Drunk Irishman just listed? How many world champions has Frank Martin fought again? Because right here, you can see that Jaime Munguia fought 2. Laugh out loud. Loma versus Haney wasn't close. Haney got booed out of his own building. That's the irony, right? I mean, he did it for the culture, but unfortunately, the culture in the arena was supporting fucking. Nobody's even talking about Rocky Fielding. What are you talking about? Rocky Fielding stinks. See, saying Rocky Fielding stinks, but then hyping up Tank Davis beating Mario Barros, that's the fucking stupidity, right? Tank Davis moves up and beats Mario Barros for a regular title. Canelo moved up, fought Rocky Fielding for a regular title. Same shit. No one hyped up fucking Canelo, but everyone wanted to hype up fucking Tank. Jed Steele, well, facts. These are not boxers now. They are businessmen. That's true. It's all about business, right? You look at David Benavidez' manager and obviously Funduro's manager, who basically all he ever does is talk about money. That's his main focus. My job is to get the most money available. And he stated it. He ain't lying. He ain't fucking hiding the truth. He's fucking totally easy to read. Teal, the only one who legitimately beat Loma, but he ducked the rematch as well. Fact. That's just true. And even that fight, Loma could have got a draw on my card if he would have won the 12th round. So I felt it was closer than some people did. Uh, but I gave it to Lopez because he won the 12th round. And Lomachenko, in both the Lopez and Devin Haney fight, hurt himself in both of those fights by dropping the 12th rounds, even though I feel he won the 12th round against Devin Haney. But he definitely did not do very much in that round, especially if he wanted to convince people. Tank is technically an email champ. Well, now he's technically an email champ for sure. What is your favorite boxer? Who? Well, I'm old. I'm 56 years old, so I've been watching boxing for a long time. Obviously, the first fighter I watched live was Ali. And the first fighter I really, really became a fan of, obviously, because I was really young for Ali, was Sugar Ray Leonard. And then, Curry, Nunn, what's his face? Who's the good Australian fighter? Oh, man, how do I forget his name right now? There's like so many. Pacquiao, Lomachenko, GGG, Golovkin. Yeah. That's the great thing about being around for a long time. You've seen so many great fighters that you've enjoyed. Roman Gonzalez, Inui. Dad, he is figuring me out. Yes, exactly. Loma and Rocky Marciano are Sean's favorites. Rocky Marciano, what are you? Mental? See, that's a guy like you. Jeff Fennick, thank you very much. I just said fucking the first fighter I watched live was Ali. You've never seen Ali live. And then my first favorite fighter that I fanboyed for was Sugar Ray Leonard, who won the Olympic gold medal in Canada, right? And I watched him win it. So obviously I became a huge fan. He did 7-Up commercials, had his son in commercials. He was a huge star. Huge star. So you trying to make this a race thing, that's you. That's you. You only support black fighters. Don't hold that to me because I support fighters from fucking every ethnicity. Jeff Fennick. I love Jeff Fennick, but unfortunately, bad hands. But I also love Zuma Nelson, right? Watched Ali live. Jesus, Sean, you are old. I know. But I was young. It was mostly my dad and grandfather watching those fights and me just being there. I like Isaac Cruz. Isaac Cruz is one of those typical aggressive Mexican fighters. He's entertaining. You won't be disappointed to watch Isaac Cruz fight like Jaime Munguia, right? Like Zepeda, right? Whenever they fight, it's always an entertaining fight. And as a boxing fan, what's not to like? You got to love fighters like that because when you see their name on a card, it's going to be entertaining. Whether you really like them or not, whether you fanboy for them, whether you think that they're elite, that's different. But as far as guys that just give you value for money, those dudes give you value for money, for sure. The Flomos believe Floyd would beat all the Fort Kings. And I don't think fucking Floyd beats any of the Fort Kings. Not Duran, definitely not Leonard. Fucking Hearns, come on, man. And come on, he would not fight fucking Hagler. He didn't fight Golovkin, so he's not going to fight Hagler. How did you score Pitbull versus Tank? I had Tank winning the fight, but it was competitive. But at the same time, Tank was injured. So, I would expect him to be far more dominant in a rematch. But you got to give it to Cruz. He was the most competitive fighter that Tank has been in with. So based on that, that's what really got him all his attention. I want to see rematch Isaac Cruz Tank 140 WBA title. Fact, Sean, he beats none of them. I don't think he beats none of them. The one he would have the best chance against would obviously be Duran because Duran is the smallest out of all of them. And also he's got a reach advantage against Duran. He doesn't have a reach advantage against Leonard, Hearns, or Hagler. So, if you look at everybody that Floyd Mayweather fought, he's never given up reach advantage to any of them. He's had the same reach as a few guys, but he's never had a shorter reach than any of them. So, that's something that some people dismiss and downplay. But when you're a counterpuncher like him, you got to be able to establish distance, right? And so that's where having a jab that's longer than your opponent gives you the space you need to be able to fight that way. If he was fighting a guy that had a longer jab and was able to just out jab him from the outside, like a Lara who he ducked, he wouldn't be able to fight the same way against Lara that he fought against all those other flat footed Latino fighters. I think Maidana won second fight against Floyd. No chance. First fight, maybe. Second fight, no fucking way. He bit him, but I don't know if he won the fight. I love how Dumb John didn't mention the cut once in the Tim Tszyu Funduro breakdown. Well, because John doesn't care. He's not a fan of Funduro. He fucking hated Funduro. He called him a weight bully. He shit all over that kid, right? The only reason he says anything positive about him is when he's trying to shit on Tim Tszyu and downplay him. When he was saying Tim Tszyu didn't deserve a Charlo fight, he got to fight guys like Funduro, right? And all those guys, right? The reality is, why you capping for fucking Charlo? You don't have faith that Charlo could beat fucking Tim Tszyu? Really? Like, Tim Tszyu is beatable. Charlo should be able to beat Tim Tszyu. But yet, that's the fight that should have happened. Obviously, he got bigger money fight with Canelo, but, you don't need to fucking lie and be dishonest. The truth is, you don't need to put roadblocks in. Now he makes it sound like Lubin is the best fucking guy at the 154-pound division. But every time Lubin stepped up, he got his ass knocked out. And even in his last fight, most people feel he didn't really do that much to deserve the victory. It was mostly that his opponent did even less than him. It was a really shit fight. Didn't Olive Hearns, Durant, and Leonard all fight at light heavyweight at some point? Leonard fought at 168 catchweight, but the light heavyweight title was on the line when he fought Donnie Lalonde. I think he fought him at 167, and the junior middleweight, junior, or the 168-pound and the 175-pound titles were on the line, and he came under a lot of scrutiny because of that. But yet, that's how he became a 5-weight world champion, by beating Donnie Lalonde. And that's not a bad fight. Go check it out. Donnie Lalonde was piecing Leonard up early on in that fight. But it showed you why Leonard was great. Leonard could adapt in the ring, like Ali, right? You don't see many fighters that can do that. Like, I was being critical of, what's his face, Donaire, earlier in this video. And I love Donaire. But Donaire didn't have the ring IQ that a guy like Leonard had, or a guy like Ali had. Guys that could literally adjust their style of fighting in the ring. Golovkin would have killed Floyd. I think his jab just would have been too much for Floyd, right? Just his jab, right? That in itself would have been debilitating for Floyd. He couldn't have stood in there and did his high shoulder against Golovkin, because fucking Golovkin's jab would have just fucking battered him. That's why he talked a lot of shit, but he wasn't too eager to fucking actually jump in the ring. He was salty as fuck when Tim destroyed Harrison. Yeah, because these guys are all acting like that Tony Harrison was great because Charlo had beaten him. But this was a guy who got knocked out by Willie fucking Nelson. He was never great. He's a good boxer, but he was always fucking weak-chinned and wore down in fights. Even in the second fight he lost to Charlo, he was winning that fight easier. He just wore out quicker, and Charlo capitalized on it. So I knew fucking Tim Tszyu was going to knock his ass out. No, Golovkin's slow, Floyd's fast. Yeah, Floyd's fast, but that doesn't matter. Golovkin doesn't need to be faster than Floyd to just punish him with his jab. Golovkin's jab is great, and it's so heavy. If Floyd sat in there in a shoulder roll trying to fucking combat and just look for counters against Golovkin's fucking jab, he couldn't do it. He couldn't fight Golovkin with a shoulder roll. I think Tim Tszyu will dominate the rematch. He will be more prepared for Funduro's attributes, and there will not be a cut. Well, he was winning the fight easily until the cut. When GG was in his prime, everyone avoided him. Facts. Like, people talk about all these 154-pound fighters, that none of them were interested in actually fighting Golovkin. They all dropped him right? Whether it's Charlo, fucking Andrade, Laura, but none of those fuckers moved up to 160. None of them. And then they talked about Ward, who at that point, when he was name dropping, had come out of 2 years of retirement and was a 175-pound fighter. How many world champion middleweights blatantly ducked Golovkin? Felix Sturm, Sylvester, fucking Daniel Geale, Canelo dropped his title, Cotto, Sergio Martinez, fucking Peter Quillen. That's 7 right there. And I'm sure there's a few that I'm missing. Oh, fucking Billy Joe Saunders. So that's 8. Obviously, Andy Lee, he was going to fight, but unfortunately, and I'm sure you know this, the fight was scheduled in Kazakhstan, but Andy Golovkin's father died. So the fight was canceled because of that, unfortunately, right? Because that would have been another great name on Golovkin's resume, Andy Lee. So, yeah, I didn't mention Martinez. Oh, Martinez as well. So there's almost 10 world champions. And then Pirog. So that's 10. That fight was scheduled for his American debut. The same guy who beat Danny Jacobs, Dmitry Pirog, who had a very American style, shoulder roll, slick, Russian fighter. And unfortunately, every single one of those fucking fighters blatantly ducked Golovkin. And guys like John Boxing actually fucking said they should, because high risk, low reward. Why would you fight him? It doesn't make sense. You're not going to get paid good money. You should fight this guy, right? That's why I like to point out his hypocrisy, because now when you say the same thing about fighters he likes, he fucking checks it up to racism. But yet he was adamant that all these guys duck Golovkin. And then talked about all these guys who never showed real interest in fighting Golovkin, moving up and taking him on, right? In the Andrades, the Charlos, and those guys who fucking didn't fight each other at 154. Literally, you had Andrade, Charlo, and Lara, all world champions at 154. Who had a unification fight out of those guys? Not fucking one of them. Not until Jared Hurd came on the scene and started fucking shaking things up did that division actually become interesting. Thank you, Hurd. Before him, it was a PBC-dominated division that never fucking unified titles. Oh my God, so many names. Gigi had a big opportunity versus Canelo and didn't get it done. Well, no. Most people feel he did get it done. Most people feel, once again, the European fighter got robbed in the scorecards. That's why I know him for what Gigi's best win. A controversial victory versus Jacobs wasn't controversial. I feel he beat him convincingly, dropped him, landed more jabs. And this was a Danny Jacobs that dropped the IBF title in the fight, refused to make next day weigh-in so he could come in extra big against Golovkin, and literally wasn't fighting for the IBF title. But of course, you don't know that, or you just will ignore it. Blowing up Brook. Brook was a replacement for Chris Eubank, right? Chris Eubank, who was a top 10 undefeated middleweight. That's who Golovkin went to the UK to fight. Once again, you lying and just telling half-truths. And a solid opponent, Lemieux, come on. Come on, what? I just listed 10 fucking world champions that ducked him. Pirog was sick. Yes, Pirog was good. But hurt his back training for that fight with Golovkin and never fought again. Unfortunately for him, that's disappointing. I love when they say things like Gigi ducked Laura, laugh out my prime Golovkin would destroy Laura, William Monroe style, for sure. Bolchak was a Ukrainian. He looked decent. He looks okay, but I think his jab is too slow. He needs to get it back faster. This Zach character looking like a proper pussy cat out here. Yo, what do you expect? Gigi clearly beat Jacobs. That wasn't controversial. Crazy. Well, it was controversial because Danny Jacobs didn't get knocked out. It was the first big opponent that Golovkin fought that went the distance. That's why Danny Jacobs dropped the IBF title so he could put on extra weight and come into the ring extra big to be resilient against Golovkin. Crazy how once Mauricio makes Benavidez Canelo's mandatory, Benavidez runs up to 175. Exactly, right? People also ignore that. Well, how come he's not fighting his mandatory? Because his mandatory is fighting at 175. I think prime GGT would destroy Andre Ward. I used to think Laura was Rob versus Canelo, but went back and gave it to Canelo. I'd say Laura was Rob versus Paul Butler for sure. Yes, he was definitely robbed by Paul Butler. And I'm glad you went back and watched it because the truth is, Laura was winning the beginning of the fight and then no longer engaged, right? He no longer engaged and he threw the fight away and allowed Canelo to win. So people that say that Laura deserved to win that fight, no, they're talking out of narrative, you know, because Laura is the right color, but not because he actually did enough to win the fight, right? And then people even say that Austin Trout beat him, but Austin Trout had open fucking scoring. It was clear that Austin Trout was losing the fight because it was fucking open scoring. I think every fight should be open scoring. I like open scoring because then you know you're down, then you got to come out and be aggressive, which might lead to you getting your ass knocked the fuck out. And if you don't come out to be aggressive, then it means you're just trying to survive because you know you're losing, but yet you're not trying to do anything extra to get the victory. So I like open scoring. I wish they would do that in every fight. And then all this controversy from refs and scorecards, it wouldn't be fucking so obvious, right? Or so prevalent because you'd see if a guy was trying to rob someone because you would see round by round and it would be like, fuck off, get real. We just watched that fucking round. No way this dude fucking won, right? And so then I think the judges would be held to more scrutiny. They'd have to be more fair because, people would know if they're fucking full of shit. Janet Beck versus Crawford. I don't know if it's a big money fight that Crawford would aim for, but obviously moving up and trying to become a 5-weight world champion would be legendary. Legendary. Janet Beck saying, I want to fight with Benavidez. Yeah, but unfortunately, Benavidez is a PBC fighter. Benavidez has gone quiet after Turkey's offer to fight better be a Bivol winner. It's true, right? Isn't it funny? He asked for Saudis to pay for a Canelo fight, and they said, we'll give you the fucking undisputed light heavyweight title fight. And then he didn't say a word. If he beats Vosdik and then they offer him that fight and he doesn't take it, that tells you everything you need to know about him and the PBC. They don't want to make fights. They want to just do in-house shit, right? And basically retread fighters and just continuously do the same thing they've been doing all along. Oh my God, Janet Beck versus Crawford is a dream fight. Sean, I'll tell you. I'm not going to be surprised if Vosdik makes DB look horrible or just flat out beats him. No way is Vosdik going to beat him. I'll be surprised if Vosdik goes fucking 8 rounds. Janabek can't sell out a Chuck E. Cheese, so why would Bud fight him? See, once again, a guy like Zaki showing us exactly the problem with these kind of guys. Why would you fight him? Because he's a unified champion. If Bud Crawford beat him, he potentially could become a 5-weight world champion. How many 5-weight world champions are there in boxing? Can you even list them, Zaki? Do you know who they are? Because there's less than 10. And for Bud Crawford to add this to his already illustrious fucking resume of accolades, his career is fucking looking great, right? Now we're having a conversation about him not necessarily having a better resume than Floyd Mayweather, but doing more than Floyd Mayweather. Floyd obviously has a better resume still. Vosdik, he was retired for 4 years and has beat 3 tomato cans since coming back. Yeah, that's why. That's why I said he's not going to last 8 rounds. But you're also the guy that's saying Canelo is probably ducking David Benavidez. Yet this is who David Benavidez is fighting next. Canelo is fighting Jaime Munguia, who just knocked out John Ryder. David's fighting Vosdik, who was retired for 4 years and came back beating 3 tomato cans. Glad you're safe. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm good. I always go to always go to work early. So I was on my scooter driving to work. I just parked. I got off my scooter, put my helmet inside, looked at my phone because it started to buzz and it said earthquake warning around Taiwan. I'm like, really? Oh, I don't feel anything. And then I just walked across the street, walked down the block, went into my school, and now we're getting all the kids to go into the middle grass area because of an earthquake. So I was like, oh, shit, okay. I missed something. But apparently it was pretty big. Where I live, it didn't really do too much damage. I live in a big city. The buildings didn't fall down. I went back to my house at lunch to see if my doggy was okay. Dog okay, house fine, no big deal. Uh, I favor Janabek to beat Bud, but if Bud beats Janabek, that is legendary. Legendary. Zaki probably justified Bud versus Eubank. You will be surprised. Charlo versus Janabek. I would be surprised. Johnny Ryder, keep bringing that name up like it means something. It's a better name than anyone Frank Martin's got on his resume. John Ryder is a guy that was a mandatory, a guy that people think beat Liam Smith for the WBA title, a guy that Canelo couldn't get out and went the distance with Canelo Alvarez. And Jaime Munguia went out there and got rid of him, made a statement. That's exactly what you want someone to do if they're trying to get a big money fight. Make a fucking statement. He did it. Eubank freak. Well, to be fair, I have no problem with Bud Crawford fighting Eubank. I mean, if they would have done that in the UK and it could generate a lot of money, if it makes money, it makes sense. And whether I like a fight or not, I'm going to stick with that statement, because that statement is what boxers should focus on. And, you know, Eubank is top 5, 160 in multiple sanctioning bodies and comes with a fan base at least. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. But let's see if Eubank fights Janabek, because he's top 5 at middleweight, but he doesn't have a world title. He hasn't faced Charlo, Adames, Lara, or Janabek. So who the fuck's he fighting? He's just trying to find money fights. Janabek would literally beat the brakes off Eubank. That's true. I feel confident that Janabek would fucking kill Eubank, because Liam Smith knocked his ass out. Or not Liam Smith? Yeah, Liam Smith. Ego still thinks Errol is a bigger draw than Crawford. Well, he can think what he wants. The reality is, the fact is, people have the same problems with Errol Spence right now that they have with other fighters who just got knocked the fuck out. We're just criticizing Ryan Garcia and how his fan base is no longer confident with him. That's Errol Spence's fans. They're not confident with Errol Spence. Nobody would be surprised if Errol Spence fought Funduro and Funduro beat the piss out of him and knocked him out. Nobody would be surprised. We would expect that if he was healthy, that he would beat Funduro. But if Funduro goes out there and beats the shit out of him, knocks him out with a few uppercuts, and sends him into retirement, nobody would be shocked. With that ass beating you took against Bud Crawford, you generally don't bounce back and never are the same fighter again. Not when you take a beating like that. No. It's crazy how Inui is going to fight at Tokyo Dome with 50,000 capacity. Dude is such a draw. Yeah, but because it's not in the US, it doesn't count. Cockeyed ego has been pushing narratives for decades now. Facts. He learned from Dante's Boxing Nation, and he just took that fucking race narrative bullshit and capitalized. And those guys are making big money off of it. So, I can't fault them for that, because if it makes money, it makes sense. But come on, man. Any real boxing fan that listens to them and actually buys into what they're saying, fuck. Idiot. Errol fans are fake. They really abandoned him for Boots. Well, that's not unusual. People do that all the time. Errol did 200 to 300K buys a pay-per-view, which is nothing special, but on YouTube, people talk like he was selling 2 million pay-per-views a fight. He had one big fight with Ryan Garcia. If Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia does 1 million buys, it's going to show you that the reason Tank Davis fight did so well is thanks primarily to Ryan Garcia. For Errol Spence, his biggest fight was Mikey Garcia, until he fought Bud Crawford. And they were acting like Bud Crawford wasn't a draw and the fight wouldn't sell. But yet still, it was the biggest pay-per-view fight he had, because he finally fought a legitimate opponent. And they were getting ready to throw him in with Canelo Alvarez, right? Because That's how much they wanted to fucking milk that kid for. Gary, in today's boxing, 2 to 300,000 pay-per-views is pretty good. Gary and Sean don't buy fights. Yeah, neither do you. That's clear. I can't wait to see the monster back in action. Actually, every fight I can buy, I do buy. So you're mistaken there. I do live in Taiwan, so some fights I can't buy. That's not my fault. That's the PBC and ESPN's fault because they don't have global access to boxing. And that's why when I talk about these fighters not being global stars, that's the reason. Because outside of America, you can't watch their fights. You can't buy them. All you can do is steal them off of streams. And believe it or not, some people don't do that shit. Listen to you. How convenient. No, it's not about convenience. Actually, it's the opposite of how convenient. It's how inconvenient. Because when fights can be paid for, I buy them. Because unlike you, I ain't a broke fucking clown. And I support boxing. But if I can't buy it because it's not available outside the country, what can I do? It was like the two Japanese brothers that just fought last weekend. I would have loved to see those fights live, but unfortunately, I don't know how to see those fights live unless it's off of a stream. Or you go to the best channel on Telegram, and that is Batman Boxing. And Batman Boxing puts all his fights there for you to see. Check him out. Donate some money to him. He's a great guy who makes boxing accessible to the masses. So congratulations to him. More power to him. That's your fault for moving to Taiwan, dummy. But why would I want to live anywhere close to you? Fucking a guy that's part of fucking retards are us. The farther I can get away from a guy like you, the fucking better. Bro, Sean gave up a logical explanation as to why he doesn't buy some fights, and you came up with bullshit. What do you expect these dudes to do? All they do is talk bullshit. Zachy, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like having a teenage girl in the comments. Exactly. And you think Zachy fucking pays for a fucking pay-per-view or MXBC? These dudes fucking never bought a pay-per-view in their life. I mean, they got to ask their mother to use her credit card if they're going to do that. And that would be fucking complicated, wouldn't it? Because with all the porn you fucking buy with her credit card, she's probably not going to let you use any more. I'm just saying. Sometimes you have to investigate just to watch a fight. That's the problem with boxing. It is not in the bars or anything. It's not in the bars anymore. Like when I lived in Vancouver, it was easy. I would go to the Marble Arch. Marble Arch was a strip bar in downtown Vancouver. They always show all the pay-per-view boxing. So I would go there, pay door fee, go inside. The only thing is, it's funny, right? You go to a strip bar and literally I'm sitting there for fucking, 6 hours watching boxing from the beginning card right to the end. And pretty much I'm the only person that's really doing that. The rest of the people that watch it, they're only watching like the main event or something. But I'm the only one in there specifically to watch boxing. Not like, I mean, obviously you're checking out the ladies in between fights, which is nice. But yeah, and you spend quite a bit of money on beer and booze and food since you're there for fucking 6 hours, as well as door fee to get in. But it was good. The only problem is nobody I knew liked boxing, so fucking I always was going by myself. Didn't find no Batman boxing. Telegram. DAZN, I dropped. They lied about free pay-per-view, up subscription price, and overall production is mid-level. Yet it's still cheaper than buying pay-per-view from PBC. Why do PBC dudes always push that stupid narrative? Like literally, there's a fight card this weekend on DAZN, and a fighter you should like, Richardson Hitchens, right? Yet there's no fucking fight from the PBC. They got 3 fight cards listed for the first 6 months of the year. 3 fight cards for the first 6 months of the fucking year. And that's going to cost you how much? $240 to buy those pay-per-views. In Canada, some of the big fights are at the bars. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like when I lived in Canada, I would go to bars to watch boxing. What is the currency called in Taiwan? New Taiwan dollar. N NTD, huh? New Taiwan dollar. Yeah. NT. NT dollar. How much is it? 1,000 NT is the equivalent of $30 US. Right, Lily? But thanks, guys. We've been on for 2 hours and 15 minutes, a little longer than I expected. But peace out. I will be going live for the Hitchens card this weekend. So if you're around, jump in and join me for that. How do you think Inui beats Neri? Body shot. Left hook to the body. Which one, mate? Rich PBC, DAZN, Top Rank, Showtime. I like DAZN because I can watch DAZN in Taiwan because it's global. But obviously, I think Top Rank probably does the best because consistently they put out good fight cards almost every 2 weeks, right? Consistently. And they really build up their young fighters. They're building young superstars, and they got a deep stable of exciting young up and coming fighters. Abdullah Mason, Keyshawn Davis, Shakur Stevenson, fucking Jared Big Baby Anderson. I mean, they got fucking a lot. Who was more avoided, GG or Bud? GG was more avoided. Bud was more ducked by the PBC, but only by the PBC. Right? It's just the PBC ducked him from 140 all the way to 147, and now at 154, right? They consistently getting in his way. But with Golovkin, everybody was ducking him. Didn't matter. But peace out, guys. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you jumping in and enjoying this with me. Stay tuned for next time, this Sunday, live, Richard Hitchens versus Gustav Limos.